I just got confirmation that we are now live on Facebook and the recording has begun.
Okay, thanks and welcome everyone. I'm Kelly Kimbrough, Chair, Council Member from the Fourth Ward and Chair of the Common Council's Public Safety Committee. Welcome to our March 8th meeting where we're discussing the Police Reform Collaborative and our resolution that we're going to be dealing with as it relates to that. For the record, members of the committee that are here, Councilman Hoey, Councilman Igo, and myself thus far from the committee. We also have council members Flynn, Farrell, okay, and anyone thus and Mr. Conti's coming in right now. You have to bear with me. Our Mr. Pichardo is not with us this evening, so we're.
Councilwoman Frederick is also joining, Mr. Chair, and Alfredo Ballerin is joining as well.
Okay, so thank you. So we have our full Public Safety Committee here. I'm just seeing who else is in the room. Well, okay, and just for the record, we have Dr. Green from the Center for Law and Justice here, as well as Joe Mancini, Chair of our Violence Prevention Task Force, and some members from the task force. Melanie Metzger from Albany Public Library, and Mr. Brian Shea from the City of Albany. So what we've, in these last few meetings that we've had, we've kind of been going back and forth with the idea of a plan, and folks saying they wanted more. But I mean, it is a plan on its face, but there's an expectation both from the community and the council that we would have liked to see some more. So with that, I have Mr. Shea here just to kind of speak a little bit about the plan, and then we'll have some of the committee members asking questions along with council members, and then we'll move on from there. So Mr. Shea, I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, so I think what we've presented to the council is, far as we're concerned, is the most comprehensive, specific, and actionable plan that any city has provided in the state thus far that I've seen. To the extent that there's more detail we need to do in terms of accountability or provide, I think that the council's resolution might be a good avenue to do that. But I'm really here. I wasn't here to present. I'm here to answer questions. So if to either clarify why certain decisions were made, or if people have concerns or they don't understand the document, like that's kind of why I'm here. But I'm not here to present.
Right, and if I said present, then I was mistaken. Yeah, we talked about this beforehand. So you're here to do exactly what you just said you're doing. And I mean, you made the statement about the plan and your thoughts on it. So from this point, I will have any council members that, committee members first that have questions or comments about the plan. Shoot or speak. Any committee members? Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, there is in the community people not happy with the plan as we have it. And I see Dr. Green here, which is good. A lot of people reference that she sees problems with it. And I read through her letter, and there is some stuff. So I don't know if we can tighten up. I want to make sure everybody walks away from this meeting happy that this is the best way we can do this plan, and this is the best for the city. So that's just a comment on my part, and I hope we can work through it all.
Yeah, I think there's a general frustration, not only with the council, but with the city and with the community over the pace this took. We everyone feels rushed, and I think everyone feels rushed because everyone was rushed. We have a deadline, and we have to meet that. But what the mayor has said is this is not the end of a process. This is really the beginning of a process. So once we transmit this to the State Division of Budget and it's accepted, I think that the work doesn't stop then. The work really just begins then, and I think that that's going to free us up to really give the kind of detail that the council would like to see to this. One of the things we talk about in council leadership, and Kelly has brought up is can't we do more than just a yearly report? And I think that makes sense. We received a letter from the NAACP requesting that we continue community outreach on this. One of the things that we were discussing once the governor raised the public gathering limits for outdoor spaces is how can we start to engage people outside, gather groups within those standards, to protect their health, and really tell them what's in this document and what they can expect. And if they have feedback, look, a lot of this is going to, once this document is accepted by the state, we're going to be coming back to the council with local law changes. We're going to have to be going to the state to advocate for state law changes to get some of this done. Some of the recommendations require changes in federal regulation. So, all of that, we're working on mapping out now. We've indicated it in the document that we have before the council, what requires outside authorization. We've done our best to provide timelines based on, what we expect. And, our hope is that it won't take that long. A lot of these things we think we can get done, over the short term, but we don't want to overpromise. But like I said, going back to your first point, the work doesn't end once this document is sent to the state. The work really begins then. That's from our perspective.
Hello?
Ms. Drago?
Yes, I agree with almost everything that Brian said. I'd like to thank everybody. I mean, there's so much hard work that went into this. And it's probably one of the best things I've seen go through the council. It's not the best product we can come up with in the future, but you know what? It's not written in stone like the 10 Commandments. It's like a living document, and it's going to keep being like that for, some time to come. So I think we just have to, beat our deadline. I think it's a great document. I'm glad that it was kind of broken down from, I didn't know where it was going really for a while, but very important things that have to be done, especially in the mental health field, I believe. And so for the youth. So I'm for just getting it going and give it a little bit, get some feedback more citywide, and look at it some more, whether it's 6 months or a year or, a couple months, so that's my feeling on it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I believe Ballerin had raised his hand. I don't know if he had a comment. He raised his physical hand to be
Okay.
acknowledged.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Ballerin.
Thank you. I guess my thoughts are, I am okay with moving forward with the thought that this is going to be the beginning of conversation, but not with a statement that says that we support what's in the written document as is. Just because I have questions about what's in the written document. I think we need to have conversations with the individuals who wrote the document and bring them and have those conversations, because like you said, Councilman Kimball, that people have different experiences, and we want to be able to respect those different experiences and make sure that we're making decisions and having final votes based on hearing everybody's point of view. So I wouldn't be comfortable voting with anything that made any type of statement that said that we were adopting these documents or we were supporting what's in the written document. But if it's more of a general statement that we are looking at this document as a starting point to start a conversation as how we move forward, I can support that. I also want to say I'm not so worried about the deadline, because I'm looking at what other communities are doing, and we are far, far ahead of what other communities have been doing on this issue as a city. And I think that's something we should be proud of ourselves for. But it doesn't mean that we can, pat ourselves on the back and stop moving forward. It means that we should acknowledge that and thank everyone for the hard work and the efforts that have been done to get us here. But we still want to make sure we get this right. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballerin. I see hands from Ms. Frederick and Ms. Farrell. I missed the order.
Sonia was before me.
Okay, Ms. Frederick.
Thank you. Mr. Shea, I like what you said there about, after this is submitted and we meet the deadline, the true work really begins and we're not done at that point, which is really true because our conversation last time, just to give some summary of that, was about some potential pieces that were missing as part of it from different work groups, and also understanding who the responsible parties would truly be, which you mentioned. So we're just looking to further enhance that, but I'm fully supportive of moving this forward so that we're not risking any progress that we're making here.
Yeah, and if I could, Councilwoman, it is our hope, and I've said this to the committee chair, that it's our hope that the council, through this committee or whatever means they think is most appropriate, really do call us and APD and whoever else we identify to get these changes done. Some of these changes are impact agencies outside of our direct jurisdiction, but it doesn't mean we're not going to fight for them. But it's our hope that we're here talking about this all the time. I have to imagine, Kelly and Ginny, this is going to be a standing item on our leadership meetings, and we're already putting together, Jasmine has been putting together the framework as to, how do we project manage this internally? How do we make sure we're keeping on the deadlines and the timeframes we've established? It's a big task, and we're going to have to bring an outside resource too. But we are deeply committed to this. I can tell you, I was involved in this process from day one, as was Jasmine. We are committed to seeing this through and to seeing this succeed.
Thank you. Ms. Frederick, were you done? Okay. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you. I spoke about this a little bit at the last meeting at leadership today, but I think having that accountability structure, so in other words, having, if it's quarterly, or I would leave that up to the committee, however often that is a year, a specific report in that I would actually add in, like, which, you have all the action items done by A, B, C. So, which action items have you hit? I think that makes it a much more, that creates an accountability structure. The other piece that I would just bring up, which I brought up in leadership today and also last time, is so I fully agree that APD should be the people that implement this. They have to be. But then where is the oversight? So who's deciding if those goals are met? Because you can have somebody say, yeah, I hit the goals. And I'm not saying that that would happen, but if it's often better to have somebody else make that assessment, whether or not those goals are hit, and making sure they're hit from the community's perspective. And some of them might need to be from APD's perspective because they're, so both sides, but I really, that to me is the piece that I really think we need to know. Who is housing this? Like,
yeah, I think, I think there's like two answers to that, Jenny. I think, obviously, the council and the mayor are going to be responsible for, you are the the elected civilian oversight of the police. But in terms of bringing in an additional outside resource to kind of, I don't want to say audit our progress, maybe that's the right word.
It could even be a different department. I mean,
Okay.
it could be, I mean, it could be, that's your job. You do that. But somebody that is outside of APD that's actually looking back at it and saying, yes, these goals were assessed. It might be something that some of the goals you might want to specifically house with like CPRB or ACPAC. I don't know.
I think that that makes a lot of sense. And that, you know, to the extent we can memorialize that in a resolution, I think that we might want to. But like that, the answer might be, it might be a mix, you know, and I think that that's okay.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
and it might be something that says that the mayor's office provides oversight, which of course she does, but to actually, I mean, the actual administrative oversight to say, yes, you were looking at these action items and you did hit that one and you did
Okay.
hit that one, but
Yeah.
that one you didn't hit.
I can
Now,
tell
where is
you, yeah, that I mean, we're building the we're building sort of the tool to do that. So I think that it makes
And
sense.
that's
Yes.
the right, because this is a process. So
Yeah.
the right answer might not be in there, but it might be something where we put in there the mayor's office will ultimately oversee and ensure that the goals of this plan, the action items are being met.
That's, yeah, I'm fine with our, what does the mayor always say? Our butts on the porcupine. That's fine.
Buck
Yeah.
stops with you guys.
Yeah. That makes sense. But I may misunderstood your initial question, so I apologize.
That's fine.
Right, and with that, if we set up quarterly reports or meetings, we could, you know, from the police department to the mayor's office for oversight, and then we can have those discussions in a public meeting with community input and community further oversight to put it out there. Because I mean, I think transparency and doing this stuff in the open is probably going to make it that much easier, because people will see what's happening, see these things occurring, get to weigh in if they think something's not right, and then we go from there. And if we have to adjust, you can adjust. If not, you know, because it is an ongoing continual process. Mr. Flynn.
I just have one question for Mr. Shea. What other municipalities did you look at?
Several. So I looked at, and I actually sent some to council leadership just so they could see. I looked at Rochester, Syracuse's, Buffalo's. We've looked at Poughkeepsie's. We've looked at the only, you know, I'm going to be honest, of all the ones I've looked at, the only report that I think comes close to ours in terms of identifying actions and timeframes is Corning's. But I can't find anyone that has done what we've done. I'm going to be honest. Yeah.
Well, that was my next question. Like what when ours outstands the other people? Like what one topic?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, not to
gloat
versions on some of these others, but they, you know, they didn't, we go a lot farther in our reforms. We did a much deeper dive across the department and its functions. And we provided actions and timeframes and, you know, I think realistic expectations. You know, some of the other reports I said this to council leadership, they just read like police prospectus reports. I'm going to be honest. They're very light on reform, but ours is very heavy on reform. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flynn. Any other council members with questions? What does it say? Okay, no council member. So we'll allow some of the other folks in the room to engage. Question, comment from all the other parties? No? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Ava.
Ayers has her
Yeah.
hand raised.
Yep.
Hi, thanks. And I just wanted to to second what Brian can said. I can personally confirm that Brian and Jasmine were pushing us to get things done as quickly as we could. I personally asked for more time and was told you just got to get it done because people need to be able to see this stuff. So and I'm glad that that's the way you all handled it. So it's actually been a pleasure working with both of you because you've been so committed to getting all this stuff done and out to the public as quickly as possible. I just wanted to say the Government Law Center has been working with the CPRB, and it doesn't look like anybody from the CPRB itself was able to be here tonight, but I know they're very interested in thinking about implementation of reforms, including the reforms in the collaboratives plan going forward. And so I think starting at the CPRB's next policy focused meeting, they're now alternating. So they have one meeting a month on case review and one meeting a month on policy. And the next one is going to be focused on next steps for reform. The Government Law Center has some law students who are available to help with research and drafting. So, you know, a lot of stuff in this plan needs to be turned into draft language that the Common Council could consider, or, you know, following up with APD. I know that there are some jurisdictions that are thinking about developing a scorecard that they can put on their website where people can look and see, like, here's all the stuff that we have in our to-do list and here's how we're doing on it. I don't know the feasibility of doing that. I do share Brian's sense that this is one of the more comprehensive reform plans out there compared to the ones I've seen. I think the scorecard would be very long. I know my working group had dozens of suggestions, but I do think that the CPRB can be an important vehicle going forward for, you know, in those regular meetings, holding the department to account. And it's certainly the board's plan to invite members from the community, as well as anybody from the collaborative who wants to stay involved in that process of following up on the recommendations. So to the extent that the GLC or the CPRB can be helpful, I just want to make everybody aware that we're out there and we'd love to be useful.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No other folks in the meeting want to?
Mr. Chair, did you want to, the written comments?
Yeah, that's
We
correct.
have,
Yes. Yeah.
And because Dr. Green is here, Dr. Green, did you want to share your comments live, or would you prefer that I read them? I'm sorry, you're muted, Dr. Green.
Unmute.
Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for this opportunity. The Center for Law and Justice supports the suggestion that the Common Council continue the Albany policing reinvention process beyond the state set April 1st deadline for submission of a plan. We're confident that the council, working together with the community, can use the documents submitted by the administration as a basis for a plan that is truly transformative. The administration's document contains a number of recommendations that can help frame a new public safety system, but it is lacking in vision, guiding principles, and a timeline with measurable goals and objectives. The Executive Order 203 called for sweeping change in how public safety is administered in New York communities. The body of the order states that, quote, there is a long and painful history in New York State of discrimination and mistreatment of Black and African-American citizens dating back to the arrival of the first enslaved Africans in America, and that government has a responsibility to ensure that all of its citizens are treated equally, fairly, and justly before the law. And to address these realities, the order requires that communities not just reform policing, but reinvent it. Reinvention requires a new vision. Before we can chart a path forward, we need to know our destination. The policing project of New York University School of Law, which we looked at, and the Justice Collaboratory of Yale Law School have identified 3 foundational shifts that must occur to achieve a new vision of safety: ending systemic racism, decoupling public safety from policing, and centering community voices. Now, after using these three foundational shifts to craft Albany's vision of a reinvented public safety system, we must have a few guiding principles in developing a plan to get us there. One New York community has identified three such guiding principles in its plan: procedural justice, sanctity of life, and the guardian mindset. Procedural justice entails four pillars: treating people with dignity and respect, giving citizens a voice during encounters, being open and transparent in decision-making, and conveying trustworthy motives. Sanctity of life states that at the core of a police officer's responsibilities is a duty to protect all human life and physical safety. And a guardian mindset conveys that police officers must first and foremost view themselves as defenders, protectors, and keepers, and it is through these lenses that the officer should view his or her interactions with the public. This is a contrast to a warrior mindset. Once Albany has adopted its own set of guiding principles, we can use the collaborative's recommendations to chart a timeline toward our vision of a reinvented public safety system. That course should include measurable goals and objectives to ensure accountability. The Center for Law and Justice has already begun work on a suggested vision statement that reflects the collaborative's work in the context of three foundational shifts necessary to reinvent policing in Albany: ending systemic racism, decoupling public safety from policing, and centering community voices. So we at the center look forward to sharing our suggested vision with the Common Council in the near future and working with the whole council to produce a truly transformative, reinvented policing plan for Albany, which we have not done. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to share the other comment received from Karen Strong? She provided written comment for review for tonight's meeting.
Yes, please.
To the members of the Albany Common Council Public Safety Committee, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the City of Albany Policing Reform and Reinvention Collaborative amended final draft report. The city started this process on the right foot by engaging diverse community representatives in 5 working groups to address different aspects of systemic racism and community safety. This process acknowledged that the problem of over-policing is complex and requires change in funding, policy, personnel, culture, and more. However, the conversion of the recommendations into a plan was rushed and incomplete, which meant it does not fulfill the spirit of Executive Order 203, which calls for the reinvention and modernization and police strategies in order to address the tensions and lack of trust between our communities and the law enforcement that serves them. To fulfill the spirit of the executive order, a key outcome of this process should be building trust and repairing the harm to Black and Brown communities because of over-policing. However, it seems the outcome of this plan is more about meeting a deadline to get state funding rather than using the opportunity to build trust. How is this plan going to build trust when it is incomplete, rushed, and some Common Council members haven't even read it? Common Council member discussions so far have focused on process and not substance, which is disappointing. At the March 2nd meeting of the Common Council Public Safety Committee, several members stated they had not read the report they were to discuss and deliberate. Some were confused about which report they were to review. As a result, both the February 8th and March 2nd meetings, where the committee were supposed to discuss these recommendations, focused more on process than substance. Council's statement at the March 2nd meeting focused on details. What's going to happen, when, and how is the city and APD accountable to the council? I did not hear a conversation about the city and the council are accountable to the Black and Brown communities in the city, as well as the committees that volunteered hundreds of hours to this effort. Though it is important that the council provide regular and rigorous oversight role as the plan is implemented, the primary accountability of this plan should be to the community that has been harmed. If Albany is going to use this opportunity to make substantive changes in the relationship between police and the community, Common Council members need to have substantive discussions about the report's content. The plan is long and confusing, which makes it hard to comment on. Yes, the issues are complex and take time to describe and address, but the plan has very little overview and context setting and gets to the detail very quickly. The impact is that it makes it difficult for the public and even Common Council members to absorb the plan and comment on its substance. Throughout the document and even in the public meetings, several acronyms are used, which make it difficult to follow for those who are not insiders or haven't been involved in the process so far. Here are a few specifics. The introduction of the plan rightfully acknowledges systemic racism as the root of the problem, but it doesn't go far enough in acknowledging the disproportionate harm to Black and Brown communities. It doesn't acknowledge the specific past and ongoing harms in Black and Brown neighborhoods in our city. The first paragraph says, we begin to break this cycle by creating an ongoing working relationship between the community and police, addressing the history of systemic racism and implicit bias, and rebuilding trust of the police within the communities of color. Dismantling systemic racism is going to take more than creating a positive working relationship, and it goes far beyond the actions of the Albany Police Department. Page 4 of the plan indicates the Albany Police Department will report on their progress annually. The timing and accountability seem insufficient given that the report acknowledges that many city and other entities are responsible for implementing this plan. Several work groups recommended taking community safety response out of the hands of police and into the hands of civilians that can better serve the community and address the problem, social workers, counselors, etc. Because recommendations come from other places, including the December 2020 racial bias audit, there are several places where the recommendations say APD should do something rather than they will do something. For example, action 1.4 under use of force says, implement CNA recommendation 21.1. APD should consider revising general order 1.3.00 use of force, lethal weapons with the changes outlined in the CNA audit report. In the plan, the recommendations should be required, not considered. In converting the recommendations to a plan so quickly, some working group recommendations were left out. Several council members noted this omission and suggest that the city provide an explanation why specific recommendations are not included. I think acknowledging the omissions are important for accountability to the working group members and the communities they represent. Dr. Alice Green and her colleagues at the Center for Law and Justice have noted the plan's shortcomings in numerous public comments, and I urge the council to carefully consider their suggestions on the substance of the plan. I also urge the council to follow the CFLJ's procedural recommendations by requesting an extension of the plan to make changes needed to build trust and accountability. See, and then she references a website that I will include in the comments on Facebook in case those who are watching the live stream want to visit it. If council members are concerned about the loss of state funding, you could follow the CFLJ recommendation at the March 2nd Public Safety Committee meeting to immediately approve a resolution that acknowledged the plan is inadequate and needs to be revised in order to accomplish its goals and work to make that happen. This work is too important to be rushed. It is important that this is done correctly and with faith in the process by the Black community. Today is jury selection of the trial of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. I fear it will be another example of a police officer who is not held accountable for the murder of an unarmed Black man. To truly fulfill the promise of reinvention of public safety and stop using the criminal justice system to oppress Black and Brown communities in the city of Albany, we need more accountability and trust at every level of government. You can make a difference. Please do your part. And that is from Karen Strong of Chestnut Street.
Thank you. Any more? Was that the only?
I have another written comment from Ibrahim Padrinian. but I don't know if there's some other participants here who have raised their hands. So I don't know if you want Ivy Morris to speak.
Yes, I didn't notice that. So I'm sorry, Ivy Morris, and then we'll get Batman in there. Ivy, Miss Morris.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Kelly. What I wanted to say was that I wanted to thank Dr. Green for joining this, because I think that the things that she talked about were the things that the review board was discussing, ad nauseum. That the things that need to happen are, we need to encourage trust. We need to have better resources in marginalized communities. And we need to understand that the conversation isn't about reform, it's about reinvention. So I just it's International Women's Day. So I wanted to thank all the women that are here today. I also want to thank Dr. Green for her initiating this, because that survey that she did, I think, was the beginning of a conversation that was much needed. And I want to thank you all here on the Common Council, all of you, for the hard work that you've done. Local Law J, yes, awesome. And I think that the more we have these deep, detailed, uncomfortable conversations, the further we're going to get. So thank you very much. Thanks all.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Batman, and then Mr. Mancini, you're after him.
All right, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible. My name is Paul Collins Hackett. To be clear, for those who don't know me, Batman, I'm on the community leadership team of LEAD, CPRB, and a bunch of other things. Right now, I'd like to talk about the LEAD program, and specifically the report and the recommendations made concerning it. I'm on the CLT, and no one contacted us for that until the draft was done. For that reason, we feel like it lacks context. And without that, the process and its conclusions cannot be respected. I don't really acknowledge the report as it pertains to the LEAD program, because they literally decided to convene and have a conversation without talking to the community members who have been a part of that program since day one. I literally spoke at the press conference, and during all those weeks of conversation, not one person reached out to the community leadership team to ask about our experiences. Have we tried to do the things that they're recommending now? So for that reason, I'm good on that. It's accountability over politics. I'm done.
Thank you, Batman. Mr. Mancini?
Yes, as I'm listening to this conversation, I'm thinking of the work that we're doing on the Violence Prevention Task Force, and a lot of the information I'm hearing fits within and intersects with the committees that we are putting together. And certainly Ms. Green's agency represents the communities that we're focusing on very well. And we can help with this process by taking that information and kind of taking a look at it. And those concerns, the LEAD program, when we're looking at our programs and community responses, that we can begin to look at that to help build on this current report and recommendations. So we're not separate, but those concerns that have been then laid out here is we can take a look at that and bring those to our committees and say, can we address this in the context of our work? So people are heard, they're good recommendations, they seem to make sense. So why not us kind of pick up and carry the water on those recommendations and processes that have already taken place?
Okay.
Can I just comment on?
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Green.
I think it's important, going back to what Batman said, I think it's important to understand that LEAD is not a city program. So I don't know why we're talking about it in terms of trying to change anything. I'm stymied by that, okay? So it's not even indicated that it's a program outside of the realm of the city. So it's included in the plan, and I don't understand that.
Can I just clarify, Dr. Green, we did add clarification that any changes to LEAD would require approval of the LEAD stakeholders. I did send that language to Brendan, and he approved it. It's so the the council received an updated report with that clarification.
Did you also include that, the changes in the working groups?
I'm not authorized to change working group reports, but I did.
Okay, well, that's part of the plan, is my point.
Yeah, so
It shouldn't be, because there's incorrect information in it.
So we don't get lost here, all right? But let's just, I know this is important stuff, and it like Mr. Mancini said, there's an intersection, everything is interconnected, but let's not get into back and forth about it. For me, I'm a member of the CLT, and I agree with a lot of the stuff that Paul Batman just said. But regardless of how we got here, it's important that we move forward. We have to take where we're at, admit or accept responsibility for it not being what we hope to be at this point in time, and move forward and do our best to make it better. That's the best we can do at this point.
I would also add that the community, generally, the community have no idea what this collaborative is or what the plan is. No one has ever voiced, articulated, what is the plan? How have we reimagined policing in the city of Albany? The people on the working groups did a terrific job, and there are some recommendations that I think should be included. But I've talked to loads of people. Generally speaking, no one knows what this is. We've not heard the chief or the mayor go out and sell the program in the city. Nobody's heard about it. Only people who know about it are you, people who worked on the collaborative, but the general public does not know what this is, which says something about doing something like this without that kind of involvement. And it's not even correct in this, in the quote draft, when they said that 14 hours of input was scheduled with community people. That's true, but I listened to many of those community meetings, and maybe one or two people called in and gave any kind of testimony. So when you put it in there, it looks like there were 14 community meetings that took place, but that's not true, okay? Because most of those meetings were actually conducted by working group chairpersons explaining what their role is, but we left out the community. And so I know this plan is going to pass. I understand that. I understand that the state's not going to take any money from anybody. We know that, okay? So don't get too concerned about that. What we need to be concerned about is coming up with a real transformative plan that reinvents policing in the city of Albany, and we have not done that.
Thank you for that, Dr. Green. Again, we even amongst ourselves, we're debating about the plan, no plan, if we like it, if we don't. Again, it is a plan. It's not what most of us hope it would be. But Mr. Shea, what's the consequence for this not,
I mean, the
meeting a deadline?
consequence is we lose funding. I do want to say, the governor's office has been in touch with us throughout the process. They understand what we were producing. They understand our process. They have discussed, counsel from the governor's office has discussed our report in public forums, and they've been very positive about it. I don't see any city not meeting this deadline. Most cities, the cities where I've shared reports, a lot of them have already submitted. So I just think it's, we are on this deadline, whether we good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about it. Obviously we're not in it. The city of Albany is not in a position to be telling the state, we don't need your funding. And again, you know, I want to stress that, you know, what we have developed is what I believe to be the most detailed, comprehensive, and actionable plan of any locality in the state. I've shared the plans. You can go on Albany Law and look at them. We've done more than everyone.
That should not be the criteria here. Just comparing it to other places does not create a plan, okay? And the governor's office has already said they're not going to evaluate plans. They're not going to take anybody's money. As long as you fill out that form that they asked you to fill out, they're going to accept the plan. So the Black community has been had, okay? Because there's nothing's going to change. We've got something that nobody knows what it is. And what's going to happen is we're going to hear from many people that don't deal with this problem of systemic racism. That's all been done with because we had a collaborative and we had a plan. It's not right, okay? So nobody's going to lose any money. Trust me. No one's gonna, unless you don't hand in that little form, you know, they're not, you know, nobody cares.
Right, and thank you, Dr. Green, for that. And with that being said, I think in terms of actually public safety members, well, I mean, how do you all, what are your thoughts on, Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, well, Dr. Green, what could we do? Can we put a vision statement in there to say this is what we're working towards to get those points that you're bringing up in there? Is that something you would recommend?
Well, I think it might be too late because we're talking about totally looking and we're talking about a transformative thing, but we don't even have what you're suggesting. That would be nice to know what everybody thinks this is. You know, if you're gonna come up with a plan, you got to know where you want to go, and that no one can tell me, and I haven't heard anybody say it yet, what the vision is for the city of Albany. There is none. But you're right. If you could do that, that would help a whole lot. But I have not heard one single person from the mayor's office, the police chief, or anybody else tell me what that plan is. What is the vision? Why did we do all of this? Nobody can tell me. I haven't heard one yet.
Well, my feeling is we want to combat racism and the systemic racism that's built in. So, you know, to me, that's what we need to do. So,
yeah, if that's, if you know, if you come up with a vision, then you know what you have to include in your plan. Okay, but we don't have that yet.
Right, right. So, what, considering where we are in this process, Ms. Gillespie, you had a.
Mr. Chair, you have two other comments. I don't know if would you like me to return to reading the written comments? It's just two.
Yeah, let's let Ms. Frederick go first, and then you can go to the comments.
Yep. So in the spirit of reading the Facebook comments going forward, there was a comment that said, if the plan is intended as the start of the process to further develop the plan, it should say that. And then we had some support for Alice saying, go Alice, so.
Okay, and as stated in our last meeting, this is the start of this process, not the end of it. And in terms of, you know, doing the resolution for what we have thus far, we're going to build into the resolutions, you know, language about accountability. We're going to do the quarterly reports, but I want folks to be mindful that this is an ongoing process. And so this isn't the end of it. This, you know, moving forward with this at this point doesn't stop us from making the changes, working with the Center for Law, Justice, and the community for that matter, to improve upon and make sure that these requested changes and these requested changes from the community get implemented. So just keep that in mind. Ms. Vives.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I don't have my camera on tonight. I'm actually in the kitchen making dinner right now. I just wanted to say that I have been silent in the other meetings that we've had about this, just to hear everyone else's perspective. As a member of the collaborative and a member of the CPRB, I think that a lot of the changes that we want to see happen will require state, county, just other levels of government participation. And in our working group, I don't know if you were present at that meeting, Kelly, but I spoke about that. And I think that the Common Council of the City, someone should say as a part of this plan that there needs to be some sort of statewide action from the state that will make these things that we want to come to fruition actually possible. Like Taylor law, all sorts of things. We talked about having officers other than just City of Albany officers helping out in our city at times. And would they be held to the same standard our Albany police officers will be held to, even if we implemented our plan? There's just so many things that we would like to see happen that can't necessarily be enacted by you all on the Common Council. And we understand the limitations of that. But I think some statement needs to be made that this is not something that localities can do. The governor's office knows that, and there needs to be some statewide action. So I just think that that is very possible for this to be real, for this to have even been a task for all of us to take part in. If we can't reach or achieve any of these things because of blockages over negotiations of union contracts and those sorts of things, then what is the point? So I would like I don't know if it would be a resolution, I don't know what it would be, but some sort of statement that says we can do what we can, but we need support from the state level.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vives. And what we're doing with the resolution is we do a budget intent memo that kind of has our hopes, dreams, wishes, and whatnot in it when we do the budget every year. So that we're going to do something similar with this resolution and add that language in there, and that certainly will be a part of it. Again, we're here taking input and getting thoughts from the community. And this conversation is actually invaluable. It may be uncomfortable for some, but these are conversations that we should have had a long time ago, but we're doing it now. And in the moment that we find ourselves in, it would be really shameful if we wasted this opportunity to make some changes. So with that, I will, Ms. Hilly, you're up.
Hi. So I just wanted to, I've been watching on the Facebook feed. I have a question. Well, I have a statement then followed by a question. So because I was part of helping organize the opportunities for public comment. They were intended to be a space for the public to speak. However, people did not sign up. So, I realized that there is a feeling that that people didn't know. I'm wondering, what is the suggestion to ensure that people find out and B, participate? I mean, even in these Common Council meetings, there is really not a lot of public participation. Most of the people on these meetings are either people who regularly participate in this stuff or people who were part of the collaborative itself. So the effort was made to make space. And yes, a lot of the time was spent with the chairs from the different groups talking about what they were doing, but that was simply to ensure that we didn't just have dead space and we left it open for people who were able to, who decided to sign up later. So I guess the real question is, how do we get people to participate, keeping in mind that we are still in a pandemic and the normal ways that we would have done this are not available. So, in order to drive more public interest, I guess I had partly expected that other community groups that were either that were, interested in this would encourage participation, and then collaborative members ourselves would also do work to get it out to our networks. And that's how we would drive participation. So in the event that they did, they didn't, or they did, or we just didn't get that participation, I know that a lot of written things came in. So we did get some, but people just were not people were not signing up to actually speak. So I think that it is, we provided the space. Why people didn't come to use it, I don't know. I also don't know what other organizations did to promote the use of space, but I would like to know how we, going forward, will ensure that people are given more information. I mean, for me, if somebody comes to me and tells me they don't know about it and I know about it, then I feel like I haven't totally done my job to try to get that information out, and I should be informing them now. So it's not just the city's job or just one of our jobs. This is something that needs to be a community driven. So we all need to be doing our part, is at least that's my own feeling on it, but I would gladly like to know how we're going to do this going forward.
Thank you. And so that, I mean, that is a question that we need to answer. I mean, not just around the issue of police reforms, but we have a lot of other things we have to discuss and work on, and we want the community to be a part of. I mean, we're supposed to be getting, money from the federal government to try to pull us out of this hole. We want to have discussions around that too, that include the public. How are we going to do that? If we revert to this, just Zoom or what have you, that may be difficult and we may miss folks. Again, I don't have an answer, but it's real. I know I was in your group on the collaborative. We did put it out there. We couldn't really meet people where they were because of the pandemic. So it's a tough question.
And I put in a lot of work behind the scenes, like sharing it within my network, sharing it within whatever networks I had, and we still weren't getting the participation that we had hoped for, at least not in where people could see. Like, we weren't getting the public participation, even though we were getting the written one, we weren't getting the public one. So I'm out of like ways that we can do better. And the only, except for, instead of saying that one group is not doing enough, or this entity or this agency isn't doing enough, we have to come together and we have to like figure out how to do this all together and really push community participation. Other than that, I don't know how. Right.
And just for my end, and this as the chair of this committee, that for me, that if folks are wondering why I've given Dr. Green a little more time to speak and make her comments, is I think she is a trusted voice. She is in touch with some of the community and some of the folks that we're trying to capture input from. So that's why I've taken this approach. Ms. Manning.
Hi, Kelly. I'm commenting today because my boss is here, so I want to make it clear. I'm commenting as a 44-year resident of Albany, currently in Arbor Hill. And I wasn't going to comment, but a few things sort of caught me off guard, Kelly. And as my common council person, I respect you. But this is sort of part of the problem. I think too often we do this, let's move forward. No, there were problems with this from the beginning. Like, now we're like, oh, we gave the community space. No, you didn't. You locked the community out when you picked the people who were going to participate when they were appointed. There was no call to the community. If you want to participate, this is how you can request to be on the working groups or on the collaborative itself. Also, I think we watched weeks and weeks of Facebook video where nobody's comments, we couldn't interact. And by the time you finally got to, now we want the community's input, we're wondering why there was no community left hanging on to give input. The whole way of just doing it on Facebook locked the community out. It also counted on people having Facebook access. It counted on people having internet access. I was in community meetings with Vocal New York and others who did like this big sort of forum out on Pembroke Street expressing that these were issues. And the common response from the mayor's administration was people will have a chance to be involved later on down the road as part of the work group's process. That didn't happen. Then when it was time for public comment, there was a rollout through the newspaper that said one thing. Then I understand it was changed in responsiveness to the community's issues, but that information did not get out to us. And there was even a point I was on one of those work groups on Facebook watching, and there was no Zoom participation. And somebody said, there are 34 comments on the Facebook page. Should we read those? And there was a decision made, no, let's not let the community participate that way because they didn't register through our Zoom process. So I think there were things that could have been done to meet the community where they're at that were not done. And that's starting from the very beginning. There should have been a call for participation, not an appointment of people who I didn't feel were representative. My son is 24 years old. He gets stopped and frisked weekly since he's been 12. He has no record. He's never been arrested. I know what he experiences. Kelly, you've gotten midnight calls from me saying this is what happened. Nobody attempted to engage my son, any of his peers, any of the guys standing on Swan Street, any of the guys on Colony Street. Nobody went out into the neighborhood and said, this is what's happening. And I understand there was COVID, but Vocal New York managed to put together a whole community event in person in the middle of winter at night. So I just think it's a little disingenuous to say we provided the space. It just really wasn't provided, and the whole rollout said we don't want community participation. And that's just my opinion as a resident.
And then to misinform, see, this plan misinforms the community. That's one reason why people have not been thinking about this, because in that report, it suggests that there was a lot of community participation. 14 community meetings were held. So if I read this and I didn't know any better, I would say, oh my goodness, that's great. 14 community meetings. But out of those 14 community meetings, you might have gotten 5 people total.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Green. Ms. Vivas, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and Lauren basically said what I was going to say. I think that the lack of participation from the community came from they're getting tired of the process from the beginning. I would see on Facebook people making calls for there to be more people from the community added to the collaborative. And then it just seemed like people were frustrated with the presentation from APD and those sorts of things, the group exercise that we did before we jumped into the actual substance of things. And I made an appeal to the mayor to change. And she said, the response was, you know, they'll get their chance. And it doesn't seem like they did. And I agree that I think people were just tired of the process by the time that it came. So Danielle is right. The forum was put out there, but people, what they thought this was going to be, it wasn't that. So I agree in full with what Ms. Manning had to say. And she said it better probably than I could have. So that's all I wanted to say.
So, okay. Batman.
Yeah, the problem of allowing the community actual input seems to be a pattern here. And that's super concerning. Specifically, we had the same issue, you know, with the LEAD program. There was a time when we didn't get any data whatsoever. You know, we requested the data, no data was produced until the reform conversations came around. All of a sudden, the LEAD program became a priority and data magically appeared. But again, that's not the actions of an administration that's looking for active participation from the community. Specifically, I met with the mayor and requested this, and promises were made, and it just didn't seem to be a priority because, again, for over a year, no data was provided. the effort seems to be to move forward. It's been suggested that lead data be provided quarterly. We've asked why, but initially it was monthly. When there was discrepancies, the data stopped coming all together. So we're confused as to why we're just going to push forward and move to a quarterly format. Again, these issues and others, it just seems to be a pattern of actually valuing community insight and using it in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Batman. Dr. Appliers, our Chief City Auditor is here. You care to provide comment, Dr. Appliers?
Thank you so much, Councilman Kimbrough. I was initially participating by via Facebook, but wanted to provide a few comments, and I appreciate what's been shared thus far. A question, and I hear Dr. Green in terms of the vision statement. I guess my clarifying question is, how are we differentiating the vision statement or the vision in comparison to the goals that were the goals and purpose that were outlined in the document that the collaborative put forward? And I asked that question because I think we can, it's a missed opportunity if we're not understanding what all the stakeholders mean. And so, Dr. Green, I'm just curious as to what do you specifically mean by vision statement? And how does that differ from the outline goals and purpose?
Yeah, I saw a lot of different, recommendation, goals, objectives that were not connected. I think what we were looking for was somebody to come up with this overall vision about what the police department would look like if it was redesigned or reimagined. Will it look the same as it looks now? Or will it look entirely different? What would be transformative about it? So I don't see, for me, that's a vision. What will it look like? And I don't think we've said that. Certainly different working groups had different ideas about goals and objectives. I really, I don't think they came together in any organized fashion so that we could say that, this goal leads to whatever vision we have of this reimagined police department. I don't see that anywhere. And that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't hang together. If you have a vision, then you have to tell me what are the steps? What do you do to attain that vision, to complete that vision? And I don't see it.
Well, I hear you on that, and I think that's from my perspective, an easy fix, because the elements of that vision are in the report, are a part of the documents that you sent, feedback from the community, and I really believe it's just pulling all of those ingredients together to come up with an overarching vision statement. I feel that all of the work that has been done thus far from all of the different stakeholders that I mentioned, whether it's community advocates, those on the collaborative, my office, the mayor's office, your office, Dr. Green, we all have a common goal, and it's really pulling all of this work together, all the comments together to come up with one cohesive vision statement. And so from where I sit, I believe that is possible, and it's just putting our minds together to pull that together.
Right, I agree. I think it's possible to do. I don't know how much time it takes, but what we were looking at, like the first draft, was simply a collection of all of the working groups' work. And some of it was fantastic, I thought. But it didn't hang together. There was nothing that that I could look at that I could use to say, we should do this to get to where we want to get. It hasn't been pulled together. And that's the problem for me. You know, and I think it's going to take a little while. I wish I could say that it could be done tomorrow, but you know, maybe somebody can work that magic. I don't know, but you know, I think it's going to take some more work with the Common Council. The Center for Law and Justice, as I mentioned, I mean, we're already thinking about how do we do this, and we certainly would want to use a lot of the collaboratives recommendations to, you know, to do that, to, you know, chart a vision and a timeline, and how, you know, talk about what are the steps you take to get this reinvented public safety system, reinvented. You know, I could put together all these different recommendations and send it out as a report. It was a report. It wasn't a plan. And that's what we've been trying to get across. You know, if I'm going to build a house, I know I have an architect design it for me. And I said, this is what I want it to look like. So then you put all the pieces together. Here, I don't know, with what we have, a lot of the good stuff, we've got to separate it out and say, this can be used to build that house. But you got to know what the house is going to look like, okay? And we just haven't done it.
Yeah, and I hear you, and I'm happy to be a part of, and I say this to you, Brian and Councilman Kimbrough, and you too, Dr. Green. I and my office, we're committed to helping towards creating that vision, and it's really, like I said, from my perspective, pulling the pieces together. The other comment that I have is really about, and it's something that Councilman Kimbrough said, how do we move forward? I know that there are a lot of people who just have a pure distrust for the administration, the government in general, who have a pure distrust for the process and felt that it was not authentic enough. It was not rooted in community enough. And one of the things that I've learned doing this work is that you're not going to please everybody all the time. That being said, how do we reach middle ground? Because there were people, community advocates, folks in the community who were a part of this process, who put a lot of work and energy and time into this product. And so how do we build on what's here versus saying, I don't like the process, I wasn't a part of it, and so we just need to do something different. And we don't get anywhere with that mentality. That's just my personal perspective. And if we all have the same goal, we should be willing to roll up our sleeves, put our own personal issues aside, and see how we can pull all of these pieces together. So I understand it's not the perfect plan or product. In some cases, it's not a plan, but a report or process. But there was a lot of good work that was put into this, well-intended people, and I think it's a strong foundation. The last comment I'll make is regarding community participation. I think in theory, we talk about community input, and we can't overlook the elephant in the room when it comes to COVID. You know, trying to engage community in the middle of a pandemic and keep people safe is a very difficult thing to do. Yeah. You know, as a part of the audit, we attempted to engage community. We extended deadlines to engage community. And I have to echo some of the sentiment that Danielle brought up. There are some people who are really attracted to this work for a variety of reasons, and they show up each and every time. And then there are those who are just so not, for some are not interested, some just don't trust that this is an authentic process, and some just don't know what's happening, and so they're not engaged. But I would not say that there was not a strong attempt to engage the community. Dr. Green, I've been a part, I'm sure you've hosted meetings and community meetings, and a few people have shown up. I think all of us who do this work, it is challenging to get people to participate as much as we would like. And so if we're going to continue to talk about community engagement, I think we need to be honest and real about the challenges with engaging communities,
Right.
especially the communities that we're talking about. Folks don't have time to be sitting in on public safety meetings or community meetings. They have real lives, real issues. And quite frankly, some of this stuff is just not, they can be spending their time doing other things. And does that mean it's not important to them? Absolutely not. It's just that they don't have some of the luxury that many of us do to sit and be a part of these meetings. And so if we're going to keep going down that rabbit hole about, well, the community didn't get a chance to fully participate, I think that we have to be honest and realistic about what community engagement looks like. And you couple that with a pandemic, extremely challenging. So I'll close my mouth. Those are my comments.
And I agree with you. The one thing that I was saying is that we should not misrepresent in this report the involvement of the community. When we said 14 community meetings were held, that is not honest. So I would agree with you. The other thing is that, in my statement, I strongly suggested that we work together to develop a vision statement. We at the center are starting to try to do that right now on our own. And, we're more than willing to be involved in trying to, move us in the direction of doing some of the stuff that we've talked about, ending systemic racism, looking at public safety and policing and what it should look like, and really involving the community. It's not easy, I would agree with you, but don't misrepresent it in your report by saying it happened, because it didn't happen. And I agree with Danielle, it's difficult. It is very difficult work. But when we don't tell the truth, it doesn't help.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Green. So there's a lot, we covered a lot of ground. We still have a lot more ground to cover. We could have these conversations. Yes, Ms. Gillespie.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but Mr. Johnson has his hand raised as well.
Okay, I only see one page, sorry. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. I agree with a lot that has been said, but I just say this right here, I've called many meetings that, sometimes 10 or less people show up. It's not easy to get our community to come to meetings. I will agree with that. But I would say that when these discussions first started about this project, this team, I think that it was a lot of people from the community that had huge networks that were interested in being involved in the process. And when it seemed like all of those people got excluded from the process, I think that, it's hard to get a group of people to never feel represented at the table to want to go through that process. It's like, and then for the messages that, we have to move forward, we are always on the receiving end of having to move forward without our needs or, our concerns being considered genuinely. And at least that's the feeling that is felt. And it's hard to continuously be a part of that process. So, when I was watching on Facebook and when I heard Lauren speak, I felt like she was saying a lot of the same stuff that I heard from a lot of people about this subject. And it's like, we had the opportunity right there. People were calling for this. Why wouldn't they want to be a part of this? And when you looked at the names that was connected to this, it gave foundation to what people were saying about the people that commonly endure these type of involvements that bring us to this conversation. So I think that we had a great opportunity, and Facebook is good for some parts of this, but for critical parts, it doesn't reach everyone. So when we go to Facebook route as the main source, we cutting people out that don't have access to that. So I just wanted to thank Lauren for making those comments, because they were powerful, and they spoke of those meetings that not many people attended. That would have been a common story or a common subject that would have been said. So I just wanted to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Am I missing anyone else?
Could I just make one more comment? If this is a plan and it's been done by the administration, I haven't heard anyone out there selling it. Well, why is that? All I've heard is this, it goes to Common Council and we talk about it, but I've heard no government officials go out there and say, hey, folks, we got a plan and here's what it is. I haven't heard it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Green. Mr. Ballerin.
Thank you. I think we all agree that there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I think we all acknowledge that a lot of work was done, and a lot of time and energy was put into putting this document together. What I'm hearing is a discussion about whether it's a report or a plan. To me, it's a starting point. To me, it's a base for us to move, continue the conversation. I don't want to use the word move forward, but continue the conversation, an opportunity to re-engage individuals that maybe felt that they were not engaged in the original process. As we, move the process for the substance of the document. Because, what one of the speakers mentioned is that we haven't spoken about the substance of the document. And that's, to me, is critical part of this. So we have to put something forward today. And I know that, and I understand that. If we put something forward that we created a report that is going to be the base for us to move forward with a plan to re-engage community members, to continue to move forward the process. Is that something people feel comfortable with? Because I do feel at some point we have to vote on a document. We'll call it a plan or a report or whatever we call it. I think a lot of work has been done, and we don't want to not recognize the work that's been done by all those individuals. But I also have said, and I'll say it again, there's a lot more work to be done, and a lot more engagement and opportunity for reaching out to those stakeholders and to those individuals and being creative in the way that we reach out to individuals. Because I think Dr. Priest really hit it on the nail. It is hard for people in some of our most vulnerable communities to be able to attend meetings at 5:30 in the afternoon, because many of those individuals are going to their second jobs. Maybe those individuals are trying to take care of their young ones. So we have to be more creative in trying to find ways to get information from individuals. And maybe it's not attending a meeting. Maybe it's, putting information out on people's doors. Maybe it's going to locations where people are. But I don't think we should be afraid of getting that, of having those interactions, and of looking outside the backs of what we traditionally do to get input. But I want us to start looking at what are we going to be approving today, because I think we have done more than our colleagues. And that's not saying that we've done it right. I'm not saying that by any means, but I do think we are in many ways leaps ahead of what I've seen other municipalities put forward. And I just want us to be able to not see this as a endpoint, but more see it as a beginning, and also beginning to correct the errors that people are speaking about, so that people could feel more comfortable with what is the final product that actually takes the substance into modern.
Thank you, Mr. Ballerin. And so that
Kelly?
brings, yeah. go
Wait a
ahead.
minute. There was 2 letters that didn't get read. One of them was from the Labor Council president, and I think he deserves to have his letter read in.
You have that?
I do. I also posted it to our Facebook page just in case, but I'd be more than happy to read his letter from Ibrahim Pedrinian, which reads as follows. I keep muting myself as I go to read the comments, so please forgive it. I don't know if you heard what I said. This public comment is from Ibrahim Pedrinian, and it reads as follows. Greetings, Common Council members. You should be proud of your hard work in passing Local Law J. As Councilmember Conti pointed out at a recent meeting, this has been a long time in the works. The Albany Labor Council has been following this process as it affects us and our members, especially our members of color and our more vulnerable or specifically impacted members. I believe it was Councilmember Kimbrough who pointed out in a recent meeting a tension which the labor community, not always united, also faces. The tension between community and duty, the tension between using our powers for others and for using our power for our own interests. Far too long, organized labor has been siloed in parochial interest and has mismanaged its own house and left communities, often non-men and non-white, isolated or detached, especially in the efforts of police reform. That is clearly changing. And as the Albany Labor Council focuses on building labor power, we see the community voice, the voice of women, the voice of people of color needs to be lifted up, encouraged, and heeded. The Labor Council has sent to some of you a letter. We will also send to Mayor Sheehan. We hope you will share it around. It is a call for concrete planning based on community input and clear demands for the voices of Black, brown, queer, differently abled, youth, and non-men voices to have a weighted say in the process. The plan, the results, the evaluation, and the accountability for any and all such work. We know based on your recent support of the anti-strikebreaker resolution that this council embodies a holistic approach to our communities, and we are grateful to work with you on ensuring all community voices, union or not, are at the table, are honored and heeded. Reverend Ibrahim Pedrinian, pronounced Pedrinian, President, Albany County Central Federation of Labor. You want me to jump right into the next comment?
Yes, please.
The next comment is from Frank Cassia, and it says, it's inappropriate to have members on the Albany Common Council that openly support the racist, Marxist hate organization, Black Lives Matter. Please take corrective action to remove these violent zealots.
Okay,
And those are the written comments that I've received. And as I mentioned before, I don't know if I had muted myself, they were posted to the Common Council's
Yep.
Facebook page.
Yep, thank you. And, you know, people have a right to speak and be heard, even if we don't agree with them. So what I'd like to say is we're talking about what we're going to be voting on. Mr. Ballerin, did you want to jump in again? Okay, yeah, we put together the placeholder resolution for this, which is by me, it's resolution 2631 21R. Do you happen to have a copy of that, Ms. Gillespie? Because that's really what, I mean, what we.
Give me 1 second, I'll try and pull it up.
Okay, because what we received from the administration is there, but our resolution is gonna speak to agreeing or disagreeing, accepting it. I for one, I'm willing and think we could move forward, because some of the conversations we need to have and the work that we need to do, if we said, let's not move forward with this and let's not do this, I think the work is so complicated that we'd be doing this to the end of the year, and I don't think we'd be even close to what we want it to be. So I think if we took what we received, did the resolution, and put all of our feelings and thoughts and hopes in it, like for instance, Ms. Vives, what she mentioned about the state folks, I'm going to actually reach out to her to try to capture that language to go into the resolution. I can recall from some of our groups, or at least my group in particular, where some of the members were saying, hey, because while these reports are comprehensive and have a lot of information, there's some stuff that's missing. So, you know, there was a conversation, about saying, hey, and not missing because of the mayor's office didn't put it in there. It's missing because for some reason the groups in the collaborative missed it. So reach out to some of those folks, or the person that was in my group that said, hey, aren't we going to have a conversation about what's in there that we expect it to be, what's not in there? And so maybe that can also go into our resolution that will speak to how we feel about this and how we're going to move forward. Again, it's a start. We do need to move. And again, to Dr. Green, she made the point about working with us, working with the council to implement some of this stuff. There's no reason why we shouldn't have conversations with Dr. Green, have conversations with members of the collaborative, both members and some of the leaders, some of the chairs, to work on implementing this. It's too important to let it fall by the wayside. And again, I keep saying the moment we're in, it calls for drastic change. It calls for new visions and looking at policing in a different way, which we can do. I don't think if we've moved forward at this point, that would prevent or preclude us from doing that, especially recognizing and acknowledging that this is just the start. And with that, I'll want to hear from some of the actual Public Safety Committee members.
Kelly, I will make the suggestion that you move it out of committee with those changes that you're talking about and get it passed.
Okay. Mr. Hoey?
Kelly, can we get in there in the resolution that the goal is that we will develop a vision statement moving forward? I would feel very comfortable with that if it was there, that we are going to work on a vision statement. So I don't know how you feel about that.
It's our resolution. It's how we feel about it. And that can certainly, and we can have a conversation with Dr. Green about crafting that.
Thank you.
Ms. Frederick.
I also agree that we should add all of the changes we mentioned. I'd also add more to the communication side of it, acknowledging that there were 14 meetings. However, due to the remote environment of COVID, participation was X, and in total, we received X number of written and public comments throughout the process. So it's very clear where we are currently.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I got it up on the screen for you, 263121R.
Okay, and could you just read through it and then, it's just the base.
Okay.
portion of it?
So resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany in relation to Executive Order 203. Whereas on June 12th, 2020, Governor Andrew Cuomo issued Executive Order number 203. And whereas there is a long and painful history in New York State of discrimination and mistreatment of Black and African-American citizens dating back to the arrival of the first enslaved Africans in America. And whereas the recent history includes a number of incidents involving the police that have resulted in the deaths of unarmed civilians, predominantly Black and African-American men that have,
This is the wrong version.
Oh, that's not the right one?
No.
For Executive Order 203, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, the issue is the whereases with when you get down to the bottom, Andrew Curse, Edson Thieben, and it actually should read, whereas the governor has, the deaths in the city of Albany include those of Jesse Davis and Donald Dante Ivy and the harm against Elazar Williams. That's not the most up-to-date version of it. I'll read mine.
Beautiful.
Okay, all right. By me, Resolution 263121R, Resolution of the Common Council, City of Albany in relation to Executive Order 203. Whereas on June 12, 2020, Governor Andrew Cuomo issued Executive Order 203. And whereas there's a long and painful history in New York State of discrimination and mistreatment of Black and African-American citizens dating back to the arrival of the first enslaved Africans in America. And whereas the recent history includes a number of incidents involving the police that have resulted in the deaths of unarmed civilians, predominantly Black and African-American men, that have undermined the public's confidence and trust in our system of law enforcement and criminal justice. And such condition is ongoing and urgently needs to be rectified. And whereas the deaths of in New York State include those of Anthony Baez, Amadou Diallo, Usman Zango, Sean Bell, Ray Marley Graham, Patrick Dorisman, Akai Gurley, and Eric Garner, amongst others. And in other states include Oscar Grant, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Laquan McDonald, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, Philando Castillo, Antoine Rose Jr., Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, amongst others. And these deaths in the city of Albany include those of Jesse Davis and Donald Dante Ivy and the harm against Elazar Williams. And whereas government has a responsibility to ensure that someone say something?
I got it. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, no, that's and whereas the government has a responsibility to ensure that all citizens are treated equally, fairly, and justly before the law, and whereas Black Lives Matter, now therefore be resolved. And now with the understanding that the language that we've spoke about here today will be included. We'll get a copy of this out before we move on it, so everyone could see with those updates in it. And I propose that we move forward with including those. But a motion, can I? And again, some folks I understand, some folks on this call and some folks out on Facebook are going to maybe think or feel that I'm rushing this. It's not my intent. And again, like I said before, we could have this conversation for the next couple of weeks straight and not come to an agreement. The stuff is too important. We need to put the time in and do this. But since this is just yet a step, I think we should be fine with moving forward with the understanding that we're going to work on this stuff and put a real effort to implement the changes and put in play the recommendations from our groups that were a part of the collaborative.
I'll second that, Kelly.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't making the motion. I was just kind of
Oh,
going on.
Can I make a recommendation?
Mhm.
That instead of using the word "the council adopts the following plan," that the council recognizes the following report as the base for plan?
I don't know but no, just one more time.
The council recognizes the following report as the basis for a plan.
I think we'd be saying that it's not a plan
Right.
that we legally or technically need to hand up. And you can reverse it. Maybe here's a plan that, you know,
That, yes, that we think, so that we believe.
I don't know if we can say we're adapting it because we haven't even gotten into the substance of the document. So how can we say we're adapting something that we haven't even discussed? We've discussed the process, we've discussed, you know, but we honestly have not discussed the substance of the 94-page document. So that's where I have an issue saying we're adapting this without even having discussing the meat and potatoes. So I don't know. I mean, I do we have corporate counsel or someone here that can give us some type of legal advice if we change the word from adapt to recognize, if that's really going to make a big difference? I mean, I again am not so concerned. I agree with Dr. Green. I don't think they're going to, you know, I think we have gone far beyond what other municipalities have done. That if they were to cut out funding, you'd really be hard pressed to be, you know, well, look at what other people are doing. If you're going to cut out funding because we have a word that's not saying adapt, but it's saying recognize. I don't know if that would hold a lot of weight, but I'll let the legal minds, if we have anyone from corporate counsel, speak on that.
Chair, I can try and reach out to Brett to see if he's available to jump on. And then can I ask a very quick question?
Yes.
I thought that someone had previously mentioned that the Common Council would adopt a plan and make, considering the following recommendations and then bullet the recommendations that the council was making to the administration. I thought that may have been discussed previously.
Yeah, you're correct.
I'll reach out to Attorney Williams, see if I can get him on the line.
To the extent it's helpful, this is Ava, I can address that a little bit if it would be helpful. Seeing what I think, sorry, seeing a nod, I think. So the certification form that has to be submitted to the governor's office requires the local executive, meaning the mayor, to check a box that says the legislative body of the local government has ratified or adopted the plan by local law or resolution. So somebody does have to certify that. That doesn't mean, at least, and you should obviously take Corp Council's advice, not mine, but it's certainly my sense that if you adopt the plan, but say it still needs a vision statement and we're going to do that, and it still needs this and we're going to do that, I think that it doesn't say the plan or whatever it is has to be the only thing you adopt. And so you can certainly set further goals, but for whatever it's worth, my view would be that something has to say that something was adopted, or it'll be difficult for the mayor's office to sign that certification form. Again, I'm not expressing any views on what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just trying to get that language in front of you so that everybody be aware of that.
So, and how about adopting with the understanding that it's a starting point?
Yeah, I like that.
What was the other word you used, Ava? You said it was adapt or
ratify, adopt or ratify. Yeah.
What have we said instead of using adapt, ratified? Or is that more of a legal?
It's the same.
For whatever it's worth, I'm not aware of any meaningful distinction between those two words.
I guess I only have a problem with saying we adopted something without having ever discussed the meat and potatoes of the 94-page document. I mean, I guess that's my concern.
Right.
I
And
just
so,
want to point out, I thought it was discussed last week when Judy Duchette was up there and Miss Farrell was saying it was inconsistent.
right. And then there was comments about the accountability structure and all that stuff, but we're going to put that in the resolution, the language that speaks to that. And again, before this goes anywhere, you all will get to see that.
I think we have to say adopt, and I wouldn't want to have one word be the thing that stops us from progressing forward. I think we have to check the box.
Yeah. I have no issue as a member of the committee with saying adopt.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair, but I have Marisa Franchini from Corporation Counsel on the line that may be able to address the question that had been previously asked.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm sort of popping in and out as I get my kids ready for bed. So I apologize if I didn't hear the entire conversation, but I just did want to offer that the executive order does use the word adopt. So if you choose to use some other language, I think there is a risk. There's a risk there that we won't receive funding. I can't tell you for sure, like somebody mentioned, our report is one of the most thorough. So, maybe they will look beyond that. But I would recommend we use that word adopt, even if you want to go further to clarify that we're adopting this report. But there will be further recommendations and further discussions and amendments to the report.
Thank you. Okay.
Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah, can we say something like adopt the outline that the following plan, spells out? That we're not fully adopting the plan, but it's the basic outline of where we need to go. And we're going to include vision statements and some other changes. I mean, would that, because like we're saying we adopt it, but that we understand it's not complete. And we're going to do a complete plan.
Wouldn't we be saying that if we said we would adopt with the understanding that various changes and recommendations will be brought forward in addition to the ones that we currently have?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yep.
Okay. So I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Something along the lines of
the language, and I'll add it in after the meeting. I'll type it in verbatim based on what Councilwoman Frederick said, and then I'll send it to you for your final approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So with that, I actually need a motion to move it out of committee. Mr. Igo, you're muted.
I tried to make the motion. Want me to make it again?
Yeah, please.
Okay, make the motion that we pass this out of committee with the recommendations, okay, to the full council.
Okay, is that second?
Second.
Committee members in favor, say aye.
Is this a positive recommendation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
I vote aye on the rest. I feel like
what?
on the rest. I feel like our legal team has made it so that we have no choice but to vote aye. So
You'll never have to vote on anything if you don't want to. No.
Yeah.
well, I have issues with the word adopt, but
Okay.
I don't want that to be seen like there's something in the substance. I have more issues with the fact that we haven't discussed the substance than that.
It's Okay, so that was for the resolution, but I think when you say discuss the substance, Mr. Ballard, what would
I say
debate it? I think we all agree with it. I think the substance is what it is. It's powerful. It's strong. It's got a lot of ideas, and everyone is in agreement with it. No one's contesting it. We're all saying, heck yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is that some were part of the process, you know, that were on the council, and some of us weren't part of the process. So there's things that we have questions about what was put on the documentation that we'd like to get, you know, answers. When we first met, we talked about going through the document and bringing in everyone from those committees to go through all those recommendations, so we can bounce back and forth what our thoughts were. We haven't done that. So that's what I'm saying. We haven't discussed the actual substance because we haven't brought in those individuals who wrote it, and we haven't gone back and forth with what different experiences are, you know? So that's what I'm saying. We haven't actually discussed the 94-page document. So that's what I'm stating.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. If you don't want to vote for it, I suggest.
I've already said I vote for it on the rest. When my lawyer tells me to do something, I listen to my lawyer. I'm wise enough to understand that when.
It's nice to have your own attorney.
Okay, so all right, with that being said, we had we had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And okay, so the resolution passes without positive recommendation. I know we said that, but I just wanted to restate that. Mr. Ballard, I would argue that we still have time to have these conversations. We can still, moving forward, we agreed that this is a starting point. Again, all of the group's recommendations are laid out or put out in those reports, the different group reports, so they're there. But if we want to get specific input or further input from them, we can certainly have conversations with them. We can do, you know, a meeting with each of the heads of the different groups if you want. We'd have to set up a time to do that. I mean, that would be just as, I mean, so we don't have to pass on that. I mean, I know you're saying you wanted to do that before voting, but the thing is, we have what they worked on. We have the recommendations that they came up with. So, I mean, you're talking about the finer detail and parts of the discussions they had, but we have the body of work from these different groups in those reports.
I hear what you're saying. What I'm saying is we haven't discussed the body of work with those who voted, and we haven't discussed the body of work amongst ourselves. We've discussed the process, but we haven't discussed the body of work, you know, in as the substance behind it. So that's what I'm saying. And you're right. You know, you're right, Kelly. This is going to be a long process, and this is just the beginning of the process. But I just want to make sure that when we do vote on the final or on policy, because this isn't policy. This isn't, this isn't policy, but when we do vote on policy, I want to make sure that we have the more extensive, detailed time to go over those details with all the stakeholders in the room to have those conversations, especially for those who were not in the room beforehand.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ballerin. So we're kind of winding down here, but what did you want to say something, Dr. Green? You're muted. Hold on. You're still. We can't hear, Dr. Green, we can't hear you. You're still.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I was just saying that Mr. Ballard is absolutely correct, because some of those reports have incorrect information. So when you vote for it, you're voting for a document that you haven't read, and you have not corrected the incorrect information. That's all I want to point.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Green. Is that your hand from before, Mr. Ballerin?
And I just want to say, I've read the 94-page document.
Yes, I have.
That's not and I think we've all read the document. I think we all don't have all the information from those who wrote the document that I want to have, and information from those who were not in the room who wrote the document that I want to have before we vote on policies that you know, are based on the document. So that's what I'm looking for, to be in a more drawn out, detailed process.
Okay, and we can schedule some further public safety meetings to discuss those. Ms. Manning.
Hi, I just have two questions. So what's the next step now that it's been voted on here? Does it go to the full common council for a vote?
Yeah, but what we're gonna, yes, it does. That's the next step. It does.
And during that process, will it be time for the whole council for you guys to discuss it? Although I do remember Mr. Ballerin saying he wanted to talk to those folks last week. But will that also have time for you guys as common council to debate the plan or the report, or no, it's just a vote?
I mean, we can have further discussion in our upcoming caucus, and even I mean, there's room and time for debate even in our meeting, where this is on up for a vote. So.
Okay, I was just trying to decide what I wanted to watch. Also, my last question is, and so who is tasked with oversight? Once, if you guys adopt it and the plan is implemented, does the Public Safety Committee make sure the plan is being implemented? Is there oversight? I didn't see any in the plan.
Right, the intention is for public safety to have a part in that. When we schedule or set those quarterly meetings up, it'll be the Public Safety Committee. The thing is, the chief has got to implement this stuff. Someone, either an outside body or someone within the administration provides oversight, but that oversight still has to come to us for us to view it and agree or disagree with it and debate and talk about it. So does that help you at all?
Sort of, yes. So is it helpful for you guys to decide that and formalize like oversight? Because I just, as a resident, there's been gun task force and every type of committee you can think of. And we come up with, what may or may not be great ideas on paper. And then 6 years later, the residents are like, whatever happened with that?
Okay. Yeah, so you're saying as a part, you want us to formalize it in the resolution?
Kelly, Kelly, sorry to interrupt you. A lot of the oversight, don't forget, a lot of the policies will probably be laws and ordinances. That's the oversight, is when we have to pass them into laws or ordinances. That's where the oversight comes in, when they have to come back to the council. So I think, we can't dismiss, like, a lot of the stuff is going to have to be state laws, city council laws that's going to come in front of us. So that's going to be the oversight process. And then once those laws are passed, then it becomes the Public Safety Committee's job to, however that annual report or whatever that quarterly report happens to make sure that those things are happening. We must not forget that.
No, that actually does answer the question for me.
Right.
Thank you.
You're very much welcome.
And further in that, when we're talking about checks and balances or overseeing this stuff, if there are goals set, and we have to determine whether or not they met a goal or accomplished something. I mean, I don't think that could be subjective, depending on how we set it up. It's either they met the goal or they didn't. And that would be, in this committee, we would have discussions and dialogue around, what we wanted to see happen, what happened, and if we thought it was up to snuff. So, and again, remember the public safety meetings are open to the public, and during the times when we're having those sessions, the public will be allowed in, the public will be allowed to comment, you know, and say yay or nay, or they like something or they dislike it, and give their input on what we're talking about also. So, I mean, this is imperfect, but again, I think we're trying to do the best we can. We all care about this stuff. We all want to change, and again, it's a work in progress, and I ask that folks don't forget that. And so with that,
Thank you, Kelly.
sure. Last thing before closing out the meeting, we have a public safety meeting on the 24th of March. It's on local law C. Is it local law C? It is C of 2021. 2021. It's regarding the use of tear gas by our police department. So you're all welcome to attend and be a part of the conversation regarding that. So it should be interesting. It's, you know, it's utilizing tear gas in our communities, some of its use of force. It's a part of what we're talking about and discussing now, and the reforms that we've been going through for the last few months. So please attend and participate if you can. I think we welcome comment. A lot of folks are in the meetings and they kind of take everything in. We take any and all comments. Everyone has something to offer. We appreciate everyone's input. So, and with that, thank you everyone for being here, public safety meeting. Thank you to the committee. I'd say good night, and everyone be safe. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Night.